All right. Hey, Tyler, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Hello, everybody. This is Noel DeBona. I'm the principal and owner of DeBona Associates, and we help our clients find hidden value in their operations. So we're real happy to be here today. We look forward to a great conversation. Tyler is a partner of mine, and he works in data analytics. Tyler, give us a little bit of background about yourself, right quick.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the CEO of Gradmore. We're a talent intelligence platform. We help teams hire more effectively, increase retention, and also improve performance among team members using data and machine learning.
So, Tyler, over our time working together, I'd like to share with the audience a little bit is that, we've worked with lots of different clients, and we find that companies' hiring practices are a little bit outdated. They're not taking advantage of some of the tools that you've been able to develop, some of the tools that we've been able to develop. So, today, I'd like to take a little bit of a different look at how to hire better and show some ways to improve your hiring game. That's really what this is about today. So, Tyler, we're going to have fun with this. Looking forward to it. So, let's go ahead and jump right in.
Let's do it.
All right. So, hey, listen, everybody, before we get started with the nuts and bolts of these tools that we want to show to you today, we really want to develop a business case. And there's no sense in doing anything different if it's not going to impact your bottom line. We're looking for year over year improvements. Tyler, tell me a little bit about what leaders can expect when implementing a data driven hiring system.
Yeah. So one of the key things that we see when you implement data-driven hiring decisions is really about uh, increasing the amount of top performers you hire, right? And decreasing the amount of like bad fits that you get when you're hiring new employees, right? So when you think about that from a business case perspective, whenever you get more top performers, you're going to see a much higher, return on your investment, right? In terms of no matter what role they're fitting in. When you get bad performers or like bad hires, that takes such a negative toll. So when you take a data-driven approach, you compound on the better, on the good performers, and you decrease the bad, leading to a higher profitability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know that data driven hiring practices are going to vastly reduce turnover. They're going to allow hiring managers to be able to find candidates quicker. And they are even going to help them find candidates that they would otherwise overlook. Tyler, you know this from all the work that you've done in this area. There's always that project engineer or that project manager or that director in lots of different positions, but there's always that one or two people that have the ability to really excel in their jobs. And when we don't take a data driven approach, it's intangible. And so let's talk a little bit more about this through performance intelligence. And let's dive into the term performance intelligence. This is something that you do a lot of work in. Um, Explain for the folks here, what is performance intelligence, Tyler?
Yeah. So performance intelligence is getting insight into what leads to better performance at your organization, right? So a lot of companies now they have performance management systems, right, that they use to score or rate how someone is performing via performance review cycle, whether that's quarterly, twice a year, every year, right? The idea is to use that data and to feed that back in to make better hiring decisions, right? Because if you know that certain types of employees are performing better or scoring higher, how can you use that data to then make a better hiring decision and find people that replicate those high performers, right? So that's what performance intelligence is really about. And we do that is we take your performance management data, your scoring cycle, like a 1 through 5, and then we use behavioral assessment data, which Noel and I will get into, to really identify, top performers in a company and what can be done to find those people and hire those people when you grow.
So, some of the benefits, Tyler, that we get from performance intelligence is really around reducing overstaffing, right? Because putting the right people on the right projects or in the right positions are going to be a lot more capable than just putting all kinds of people on the problem. Now we've got people that are actually having a level of, performance that far exceeds the average person, right? We want top performers.
Exactly. And because top performers produce at such a higher level in terms of efficiency, You reduce the overstaffing issue right there. The other way it could be used is with talent mobility. So
Yes.
identifying potential leaders within a company, right? So if you have, let's say, a sales organization and you have a lot of junior sales reps that you want to identify as potential people to promote, this gives you more insight early on if they're going to be on track for that, right? So we see that being used as well in terms of like a leadership role and identifying, areas where they can be successful there too. And then obviously with just in pure, making decisions around hiring, that could be leveraged in this area as well.
Yeah. And so what we're saying here, Tyler, is essentially we're going to increase performance effectiveness because we want there to be an understanding between the hiring managers, the operations folks, and the folks in HR, the talent acquisition specialists. We want them to come together and understand what factors lead to top performance and also what do the bottom performers look like and those in between. And we find in many organizations that the human resource function is kind of separated quite a bit from the operations of hiring managers. And I think that's a recipe for disaster. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that, Tyler?
yeah, totally. I think it leads to a lot of conflict and a lot of
Yeah,
miscommunication. And also a lot of times, like people are making decisions just based on like bias. Oh, we think this is what leads to better performance at our company. And it's like, but does it? You don't have the data to support that, right? In this situation, it allows you to align both the HR function and the leadership function amongst specific departments. So that way it is, backed by data and leads to unity on who you should have within the company and who are the high performers that will likely succeed in the roles. And that we think is key because that eliminates a lot of the problems around bad hires, having a hard time making decisions. Oh, the HR team thinks this is a great fit, but the team, leader doesn't, for
yeah.
some reason, and they're not aligned on that. Job description issues. So it goes on and on. But this just increases efficiency and makes things, just easier in that way.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's talk a little bit about these objective data and tools. So, again, we want to give the talent acquisition specialists, the human resource leaders, we want to get them in front of the operations managers. We want them to lead the way in terms of hiring, right? But we want them to partner with their operations managers because when internal stakeholders are not aligned on this job target, it's going to be shooting in the dark. It's going to take a shotgun approach, and we want to take a rifle approach to this. And so we're in favor of empowering the HR talent acquisition team to get into these conversations and use these tools to their advantage for the purpose of getting this alignment that Tyler and I have been talking about on this. So I guess what you could say, Tyler, is that when you can visualize what this candidate's role is and how it fits into the looking for the right behaviors and the cognitive fit and the technical aspects, then both the operations managers and the acquisition team can now really see what they're trying to do instead of just looking at a requisition and throwing it over the desk, looking at it and putting an ad out there. In fact, Tyler, a lot of times we've got clients that put ads out there that actually attract the wrong type of personality fit to what they're looking for, just because of the way the advertisement reads. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's pretty common. And then that leads to just sort of like a waterfall effect of, then the interview process is a mess because you're like, oh, we're not getting the right people. And that just takes more time for the HR department. It puts more burden on them. And then, things just kind of get really messy. So really by being able to have this data and in an easy, like understandable way and digestible format, so you can make the right decisions and everyone's aligned, eliminates things from the job description all the way through to the interview process and the ultimate hiring decision. And we've seen that happen with a lot of clients where, they're spending too much time, focused on candidates that are never really going to succeed at the highest level there, but might be fitting some sort of potential bias within the process that is now pushing them through and is not a good fit both ways. So this will definitely, eliminate that and make it a more objective process that everyone can get on board with.
Think about the bias too. Think about how much how much bias we have just in our everyday thinking and our perceptions toward other individuals. Hiring managers that they know in their own minds, they know 100% what they're looking for, but they're exercising a bias because they may have not considered other types of, candidates because, and when we graph them out, on a graph, we put them to look at what their behavioral types are. They're all the same. There's no diversity of thought on that team. The team dynamics is very, 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 pigeonholed in one area, and they've got a whole bunch of things that they're missing out on as a team. So we
Yeah.
want to be able to we want to be able to avoid that bias, Tyler. And then also, what would you say about the fourth step we're going to talk about today is interviewing with confidence? Tell me a little bit about how your system can enhance the ability of the hiring managers and the HR folks to be able to interview better.
Right. So with the data, it will actually give you insights into and questions depending on the candidate that we recommend according to our data. Right. So for example, let's say we're talking about a sales team, right? Well, we found this in different sales organizations. Like there's usually like 2 or 3 or 4 different types of people that succeed, right? A lot of times there's like a bias, to go back to that quickly, around like the only people that are great at sales are extroverted people and who are like super aggressive. Well, a lot of times it's actually not the case, depending on your sales cycle and org that you have. But our thing will actually give you the right questions to ask. So we'll actually give you specific interview questions that you should ask to really figure out if they're a good fit, and give you insight into what we expect from this person from a performance perspective, right? So the interviewing process becomes less about kind of like, oh, we need to interview this person multiple more times because we're not sure. You start to eliminate this like uncertainty when you're making decisions, because you know that if you ask these certain questions, you're going to get the answer you want and make that better decision, right? So that's where we see a huge advantage in that. And the interview stuff can be used both by like the HR manager and also the talent, the head of the department or whoever is the hiring manager, to expedite the process and make it more effective.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose good people if you can't make them an offer after 1 or 2 interviews. It's not like it was 5 or 10 years ago with, multiple trips, multiple rounds of interviews. It's a very good point, Tyler. So Tyler mentioned a little bit about this type of performance criteria, or actually use the term behavioral assessment. And just for purposes of our conversation today, we're using the predictive index, but our methods actually can be used with any other type of psychometric evaluation that clients would like to use, whether it's a disc analysis, caliper, um, Myers-Briggs, whatever it might be. So for purposes of this model today, we're going to talk about 4 key factors. I'm just going to do this very briefly so you get an idea of what these plots mean, right? So dominance is really either being very collaborative or independent. And this person is somewhat independent because this is where we put this particular plot. Then we've got so that's dominance. We've got extroversion, whether you're very reserved or very sociable. And this person would be more towards the very sociable, as you can see. And then stability. What does stability mean? That's process driven stability. But people that don't have a lot of stability are multitasking, lots of driving, and those that are very much in the high level of the stability index are going to be much more steady in their approach, process driven, and they're going to want to make sure that they do things according to a process. And then finally, the fourth key factor that we're looking at is formality. What does formality mean? It's the need, the drive for rules and structure. Somebody might be extremely flexible or very precise. So those are just some very basic terms that we use for this particular predictive index assessment. Now, I'll tell you something, Tyler. You know this about the PI assessment, the BA, behavioral assessment. It's been used since 1955. Over 30 million people have taken it, and it is very, very accurate and only takes about 6 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes to complete. Anything else you'd like to add about this, Tyler? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, just one quick thing to note, where you are in the scale. So like if you notice like someone independent, versus someone who's very independent. That makes a difference too. Or someone who's very sociable versus like a little bit sociable. A very sociable person might be like, I need to be out all the time, right? A somewhat sociable person might be like, yes, I like doing that, like social events, but I don't need it to happen all the time. So the scale and the deviation off the middle is important to understand.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. So, what we want to do in order to get this assessment and to get alignment with this assessment, this job assessment, we have other tools. We're not going to go into the details of those tools today, but we want all the internal stakeholders to take the assessment that will actually create a plot like this. And then we want the HR folks to do it as well. And then we want to contrast and compare. But in addition to that, we want to bring in the performance aspect of it. Now, also, we've got Tyler and I, we've got access to software that allows us to have literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of data points for different types of positions. So we could just as easily use that. And also, we want you to be able to leverage your own top performers, your own data on what is a top performer. And that's what Tyler's going to talk a little bit about. So, Tyler, let me ask you something. When you're looking at these behavioral assessments and you look at when you take into consideration, when you correlate these behavioral assessments to job performance, what are a few surprises that you identified along the way?
Yeah, I think a lot of times what we'll see is people have like a bias about a certain job, and then it turns out the opposite is what's successful at the company or something different, right? We've seen this with sales teams. I've seen it with engineering teams. We've seen it with project managers, even leadership roles. People are like, oh, our leaders need to be like this, and it turns out, well, actually, your successful leaders are the opposite. Like I said earlier with the sales, we see the whole like extroverted. Well, I've had companies that have sales teams where actually being extroverted, too extroverted is bad, and actually is not a top performer at the company and on average. And actually someone who's more of like a problem solver, like patient person is better, right? I've seen things with engineering teams where people think, oh, they need to be super, precise, right? Or, something like that. When it turns out the driving person is the best engineer because they're the ones getting things done faster and hitting the numbers. So that's why we love this, because it eliminates that bias that is very prevalent within companies and leads to continuously hiring the wrong people or making mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler, one thing that's really interesting about this is that in most instances, companies that utilize psychometric evaluations do not correlate their psychometric evaluations and their types of people that they think they want in those positions with performance data. So that's the difference in what we're doing here today is we're coupling two different things together here, which makes it absolutely powerful and a lot better, actually, a lot more effective, wouldn't you say, Tyler, than just
Yeah,
relying on the psychometric analysis?
yeah. If you just rely on a psychometric analysis, again, it could just confirm some of your biases, because what will happen is a lot of times when they develop those job targets based on that, you're doing it based on what you believe is going to be a fit. And that can still lead to misconceptions or bad hires, because if your team thinks, oh yeah, this is what this sort of job target is what it is, then you're just going to hire that bias again, and you're going to confirm that. While when using your performance data, there's no argument about why someone's performing well or not in that situation. When you're using more objective data as the way to build that job target or for your company.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. So the second step here is really we need to visualize and ensure the right job fit. So basically what we're showing right here is just there's three different profile types. Now the predictive index uses 17 different profile types. And you'll see that this particular candidate is hit A, B, C, and D. They're within the ranges that have been developed here. So when we take the behavioral assessment, we'll change these ranges to be able to we'll dial in based on the performance data in addition to just the psychometric information. And then we also look at the cognitive target in addition to the behavioral target. But um, Tyler, when you have coupled your performance data with the, let's say for today's conversation, the predictive index data, um, I've seen oftentimes where these can shift pretty quickly into other types of people, right? So instead of a guardian, craftsman, or operator, we might need a strategist or a promoter or somebody different in that position, right?
Yep. No, definitely. We see that once you use the data, it's definitely a huge shift. The other thing you'll notice is like, which our tool can do is take the behavioral target, and if they do cognitive, we can actually combine those two and see how that impacts, right? Because cognitive score can also be a predictor of success with your behavioral target. So our tool can actually make that combined and give a more powerful insight as well if the company wants to use both. But yes, definitely the shifts will change because the data is supporting is giving you different insight than you might expect.
Now, without that performance data, what I've seen happening, Tyler, is that the HR folks and the different stakeholders on the operations side start talking about it. And they say, well, we should make this a bigger range. And before you know it, you've got a range so wide that it really doesn't make sense that you're even evaluating on those kind of wide ranges. So there's lots of pitfalls using just psychometric data. Talk us through this a little bit on this particular spreadsheet.
So I just want to just give people an understanding that as long as you have a performance score, whether it's like 1 through 5, 1 through 10, or if you want, if your company is like, let's say you have a sales team, or you want to use revenue numbers or quota, like that can be done here, right? And then the ABC
any KPI, right, Tyler?
Yeah, any API, anything.
Any,
as long as
any
it's an objective
KPI
metric,
or metric.
Yeah, right. As long as it's objective and not just like there's like a subjectivity to the numbers. And then with the ABCD, it's just giving you understanding that like there is a variance, right? So like someone who's like a 2, a -2 versus a 1, there's a big difference, and we use that data to come up with our analysis. So just gives you an understanding of like what we need to do this. But as long as you have like a behavioral assessment like PI and some sort of objective KPI, like it can be done.
Excellent. Makes lots of sense. Take us through this stack up, Tyler. This is looking at some of the data based on your performance scores. Yeah. Take us through this right quick.
Yeah, so just quickly, just to give you an idea of like once the analysis can complete, you'll be able to see that in this situation, right, 4 or above was like that means the person was a top performer or high performer. Below a 4 meant at this company that they were low performer. And this just give you an idea of what the result could be. Like in this situation, you could see how the huge discrepancy between someone who's a top performer versus a bottom at this company, right? So just to show you how visually the difference is in terms of their behavioral makeup and what that can mean when you're hiring as well.
Excellent. So the third out of 4 steps is really just going ahead and ranking these candidates based on fit. And so we'll have, an overall ranking, and then we'll have behavioral / performance score and cognitive match, and we'll rank everybody. And from this example, we've picked these 2 individuals. So it really, really pares down the numbers of interviews that you have to do to a couple of qualified people, really. And then finally, on the interviewing side for the 4th step here, you'll see that in this particular instance, there might not be the best match. However, based on the individual attributes that the interview team would like to get some better insight on how material this offset would be, and if it would result in issues with that person's performance. And so, Tyler and I can develop, our system will allow you to develop behavioral interview questions. Anything that you'd like to add to that, Tyler?
Yeah, so in terms of misalignment too, right? When you like in our system, if you set a job target based on behavioral assessment, there's sometimes certain combinations that work really well that may not fit that target. Our thing will identify that, right? So like I said earlier, like if you have a team of 500 project managers, what makes someone a successful project manager could be 2 or 3 different types of combos, right? Because somebody who's like very precise and driven could be a top performer, while someone who's really extroverted and very aggressive could be another type of top performer. So it will actually give you more insight of the types of people that fit well. I like to compare it to like a sports team. It's kind of like what makes someone a really good football player. Well, there's usually like 3 or 4 different types of makeups that make someone really good at sports, right? It's not just like, oh, the quarterback is always this. So just understand that it's it will identify those things.
Excellent, excellent. And so, just to wrap our conversation up here today, Tyler, when you're able to, have alignment on the position that you're hiring for and the right job fit, you're using data. The systems that you and I use are very easy to get our clients up and running very quickly with. What types of learning curves do people have in using the different type of data mining software?
Yeah, so it's not much of a learning curve because you're going to get the output and in a very simple and digestible format, right? So it's less about them having to like pull numbers. Like our system it does it automatically with machine learning, and it also updates it. So really from like a learning curve, it's more about just getting people aligned on believing that using performance data and behavioral or other data to make better hiring decisions, right? So the actual like execution of it is very seamless. We've never seen anything become a problem in the sense of like once we're implemented in the tool.
Helena had a question in our audience today. Helena, hello. She asked the question, how to evaluate profiles of junior candidates. I guess what she's saying is that there might not be performance data because they might be new to the organization. Is that what you're saying, Helena? I'm assuming that's what she's saying. Without that data, what would you say to that, Tyler?
So with this, if they have, the question is really is like if they have junior people at the org and they have some sort of data, then yes, then I would say we could do that, right? So let's say you're hiring junior people. We've done this for junior people, but it's usually when a company already has like, let's say 40 or 30 people in place, right? Because you're already going to be able to have that data. So that's how I would advise it on for junior level people. If it's a new position, it's a little bit trickier. We tend to have to use some performance data, and then we may have to use something else within the company depending on the position. But as long as they have historical people or people that have already worked in the role, it's fine. It doesn't matter the role, junior all the way to senior leadership.
I've worked with a large construction company that Helena actually looked at all of their college graduates that have been employed in their company for 2 or 3 years and looked at the top and bottom performers and be able to ascertain what is a top performer, and as this person goes through their first 2 years of after joining the company. And that helped them a great deal when they went to college fairs and they started entertaining all kinds of different applicants. I think they went from like 1,400 applicants and or 1,200 to over 1,200, and they ended up with hiring 44 people. Quite a big paradigm process. I hope that helps you, Helena. And you can always link up with us after today's seminar. And if there's anything we can help you with, we can provide you more insights. Very good.
Yeah, what we do is like, just one thing on that is like if your organization, every organization is different in terms of how they're set up.
Yeah.
Like for example, if you're hiring junior people, maybe it's the fact that you're hiring junior people because you want them to identify then people that can be a good leadership fit, right? In that case, we might now be looking at your senior leadership data and using that as a way to identify junior talent. So depending on what this is for within the org or like what your organization structure and industry is, that will determine the best approach to this for that.
Excellent. Well said, Tyler. Tyler, as usual, I've enjoyed our conversation today. I hope all of you out there, if you do have any other questions you'd like to talk to us in more detail, not a problem at all. You can reach us. If you look at the QR code on the screen, it's got Tyler's contact coordinates and my own contact coordinates, and we're happy to help in any way we can. So with that, my friend, I'm going to sign off for now. Tyler, thank you very much. And
thank you. Thanks for having me
with you.
Take care.